Well, again, everybody, this is Steve coming to you with another writing fundamentals video. This one's on time travel. I don't have a lot with this one, but I wanted to bring this up and kind of refresh your memory for those who haven't seen my earlier videos or it's been a while. There are a couple of different theories about time, and I'll cover those real quick. There's two theories of time and how it flows. One of them is the linear time, which is more common or more commonly used, and parallel time. Linear time is basically there's only one timeline and it goes from A to B, and any changes made at any point in that timeline will affect the future. So if you go back in time and you change something, the future will be changed. Parallel time says if you go back in time and you make a change, instead of it changing the future, all you do is you go down a different thread of time. Because like each decision that's made or certain impactful decisions are made, the timeline will split, and one direction will go one way down the path of you made that decision, and the other one says you didn't, or it might fracture into every possible decision you could have made, and whatever decision you make is that timeline that you go down. Parallel time is the unlikely theory because of conservation of energy, the law of thermodynamics and stuff, and the fact that time is the result of entropy. So that's kind of the quick overview of that. So one of the things you got to consider when it comes to time travel, and you may not want to throw this in, although I think it would be kind of neat because it adds an extra depth and more believability to it, is the fact that since entropy pushes time forward, and without entropy you don't have time. That doesn't mean events can't happen. It's just that time doesn't exist without entropy. That's why you get eternity, where you never age, you never grow old, you never die, stuff like that. And that can only occur if there's no entropy, because if there's entropy, you're going to decay, you're going to grow old, you're going to die. But if there's no time, you will never age, you will never grow old, you will never age, or any of that stuff. It's kind of hard to understand. Once you get to digging into the theories, you'll start to understand it. And like if the theory of temporal framing is true, then that means linear time is true. But that also means that if linear time is true and temporal framing is true, and temporal framing is this is a quick summary, is that time exists as these little picosecond snapshots, or like frames, like slides in a projector, or or individual frames on a movie reel, and they're all lined up in a row, and you experience time by passing through these frames, like this high-speed slideshow. If that's true, then going back in time and doing anything will not affect the future. Because if you go back in time, you have become part of the timeline, which means it doesn't matter what you do. You could walk back there and say, I'm going to assassinate JFK, and I'm going to do it 3 weeks before they actually killed him. That's fine. But if temporal framing says, no, the history is already written, so you can't actually change anything, you're not going back to change time. You go back to become part of history. You were part of history in that time, and events will work against you as far as changing that history, because since history is already written in advance because of those individual frames, all you're there to do is play your part, and participate in your particular way, or your particular little tidbit of time, and then you either die, you go back to the future, or back to the present, or whatever like that. You basically don't actually change time. You just go back and you do your participation part, because you are part of that piece of history, and everything you did is how history played out. So you can try to change it all you want to, but it's not going to let you change it. Everything is fixed. So there's like I said, there's all of that. Now, that being said, if temporal framing isn't true and time can be adapted, you've got two problems here. One, to go back in time, you have to decrease entropy. which means you have to gather energy and introduce it into the object you wish to push back in time. So if you it's kind of, think of it like pushing a ball up a hill. The only way to go back in time is to be like that ball and have something push you up the hill to where you originally were, say 20 minutes ago, and then it stops pushing you, and you just go back down the hill just like you did before. Like I said, that's the only way to go back in time, is to decrease your entropy and increase the energy that is, that is within your body and maybe the device that you're in and stuff. So it would take a lot of energy to push you back in time. They've actually calculated how much it is, and they said it would be a ridiculous amount. You'd have to basically milk a star for all of its energy just to go back a minute or a second. I don't remember what they said it was. It was some ridiculously short amount of time. There's a lot to that. I'm not a numbers guy, so I don't know what the math says that makes them think that, but because I can't see needing to put that much energy into an individual object to decrease the entropy and push them back in time, or push them up the timeline, because we're technically on the downside of the timeline. History past is the upside, history future is the downside, and we're on the slope going down, which goes with the fact that everything is slowing down, everything's winding down, everything's slowly running out of energy. There's a whole science behind that. You can read about it. Light decay theory is an interesting one to get into. It's kind of hard to find information on it, but light decay theory, which theorizes that the speed of light has been decaying since the dawn of creation, or if you believe in the Bible, since the fall of Adam, because prior to the fall of Adam there was no entropy. When Adam fell, then entropy started, and light went from being instantaneous from one side of the galaxy to the other to slowing down to its current speed, which textbooks say it's 186,000 miles per second. It's actually not. I think they said it's down to like 176 or 160,000 miles per second or something like that. It's gone down, and they've got actual documented scientific proof that it is going down, just through the different measurements and stuff. But anyways, you can go, like I said, to go back in time, you have to push a whole bunch of energy into the object you want to move through time, and it will go back up that hill. And you don't have to get all sciencey in your stuff. What you have to do is you have to make it believable. Like Star Trek Discovery, they used a time crystal, which was a piece of crystal that stored a huge amount of energy, but it also was a piece of technology that allowed you to create wormholes through time and move back and forth using the wormhole system. So kind of the same idea as reversing entropy, but you used an actual wormhole that was full of a lot of gravimetric and temporal energy and stuff like that, and it pushed you back in time, or forward in time in their case, which means to go forward in time they would have had to have gone through a huge amount of entropy through that wormhole in order to reach the new destination. Because if they had gone through the wormhole but they hadn't completed entropy, one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to turn into this supernova and go because they got all this extra energy that the rest of the world around them doesn't have, or it's somewhere along the way that wormhole is going to drain off the excess energy through like super entropy until the ship itself, when it pops out on the other end, it matches the entropy level of the destination. I think that's about it. Now, one thing though you're going to have to do when you're dealing with time travel is, if you go back in time, like if you're doing a real world thing, or even if you're doing a fantasy world thing, the thing you have to realize is that everything you do has consequences. So if you follow the non-temporal framing, linear time idea, and your guy goes back in time and changes something, your character may or may not be affected in the past by that change. There is a number of them, of sci-fis, where somebody goes back in time, changes something, or they affect a change. Basically, their presence causes a change in the local people that changes the future, And like for a good example of this, if you look at the if you dig into the Terminator universe, there's examples where they went back in time, and instead of stopping somebody from doing something, they're the ones that instigated that person to go down that path. And if they had left well enough alone, that person wouldn't have gone down that path. There's other instances like they have in some of the books where one of the Terminators, I think it was a T-800, came back in time going after John Connor. He failed to do so, and in the process triggered a change in the future such that that T-800 disappeared. Which I don't understand how that works. To me, it would be like, okay, he made a change in time, but then he ceased to exist because his future never happened because the future was changed, which then creates what's called a temporal paradox. Because if he disappeared, then he never came back in time and changed the future, so how's the future changed? So, temporal paradoxes is real ugly. But it's one that you got to be careful of because paradoxes will mess up your story and it will ruin it if you do it wrong. If you do your time travel wrong. So keep really good notes on what's happened in the present, what's happened in the future, what's happened in the past, etc. like that. Keep really good track of it. To keep time periods, time flows. This is especially true if you do like alt history. If you do alt history, you have to have a catalyst that causes that change in history. If it's a time traveler, great. But even if it's not, let's just say you look at the theory of parallel time, and in your case, your alt history is one of the parallel timelines. You're still going to have historical momentum. So, like, let's say this is one theory one story idea I worked on. I don't know if I'll ever be able to pull it off. It'd be kind of fun, but I'm not sure if I can. What it is in the story, a group of men, soldiers, are sent back in time because they have this one guy who's descended from the Confederates, coming from a Confederate general, and he doesn't like the direction that the Civil War went. Or else it was a Union general. I don't remember. It was descended from a general. I think it was a Confederate general. But anyways, he's an ancestor. Does not like the direction the Civil War went. So what he does is, one of the DARPA super secret Area 51 guys develop a time machine. They figure out how to send people back in time. The problem is they can't send big, vast armies back in time. All they can do is they can send like a handful of people at a time. And it takes them a while to charge back up and send another group of people and send another group of people. I mean, they might all land in the same area within like 15 minutes of each other. But, in the future, it's taking them years and years to send everybody. So you got that too, where you could have, they can only send somebody every 3 months. In the future, it's taking them years and years to send everybody. In the past, everybody just arrives like, and they're all there. So, because the past and the arrival times are not hooked into what they are in the future. Anyways, in the story, they get sent back to the past, and they arrive, and they've got their modern gear, they've got their modern uniforms and stuff like this, and they run into the local natives, and they have to try to build relationships with them. They start running into American colonists. They had to go back like 150 years before the Civil War because they realized since they can't take their big equipment with them, they can't manufacture weapons. They can't send hardly any weapons back with the guys. So what they do is they send the guys back with just what they need, just enough to get by. These guys then set up colonies. They take all of their modern knowledge with them. They set up a colony, they start bringing in locals and teaching the locals this advanced technology and this advanced knowledge. And this is going to take several generations for them to achieve, going from about 1700 up to about 1850, 1860. And so they're out there for the American Revolution and all of this stuff. War of 1812, etc., etc., and they're working on taking people who are running around with flintlock muskets and basic black powder and turning them into a modern military force. And the problem is, you're talking about people who think in 1700s mindset. They're very rural. They're very, leather and stone and axes and muskets and stuff like that. And you're trying to teach them modern theories, chemical science, to make gunpowder, cordite, stuff like that. How to do brass work. You don't have the infrastructure to get the brass, and if you do, it's very expensive. Since it's going to take a long time, you have to build the colony, and like I said, this was the whole idea. Like I said, I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off, but that's kind of the idea. And these guys find that despite their best efforts, they do build a military force, but the force is like 6,000 people of actual fighting infantry. And really they end up, when it gets to the Civil War, they've tried all that they could, them and their descendants and their descendants and so on and so forth. They have all tried everything they could to advance their culture and their society as fast as they could to build all the weapons they needed to go out there and basically be the strong guy that stops a civil war. Well, like I said, they find out that that's not really doable. They have a lot of modern knowledge, but applying it in a time period when you don't have the infrastructure and the companion technology to make that happen, and you're trying to make that technology, so you're going from modern day back to 1700s technology and trying to bring everybody back up to at least the 2000s, or at least the late 20th century worth of technology. And they, like I say, they don't make it. The most they have is 6,000 guys that they've trained up, part from the colony, part from the locals. There's still a lot of 1800s thinking, and there is the fact that their manufacturing base sucks. So because you figure if you've got 6,000 guys, you need at least 600,000 rounds to send with them. So it's like that's essentially 100 rounds per guy. Any normal military unit is going to have way more than that. They would probably send about 6 million rounds. So you can kind of see the situation they're in. They don't have enough forces. They don't have the technology or the infrastructure to mass produce large amounts of ammo or weapons. They've been producing weapons over time, but they have a hard time with that. Logistics suck because they don't have jeeps and airplanes and stuff like that. They've got horses and wagons. They've got semi-modern firearms because they find out that the high-tech firearms that they brought with them takes a level of precision and technology that they don't have. So they've kind of had to revert back to like the M1 Garand, if you will, or the Springfield rifle or something like that. Something that they can manufacture with their level of technology. So again, that was one example of time travel and the consequences of it. I don't really have much else on that, which I've said a couple times already, and then I'm like, oh, I thought of something else. Oh, another thing too, if you want to see an example of how temporal framing works and some of the consequences of that, when I bring out my After Off-World Chronicles, I kind of cover what that is, because that is a major player in the Off-World Chronicles. You don't see it in the original series. You experience it in the follow-on series, the After Off-World, and it's explained to you how it works, why everything has happened the way it's happened, and so on and so forth. So that's a good one for looking at time travel and stuff like that. When that series is coming out, I don't know yet. I'm shooting for some time no later than June of next year. I'm still waiting on Draft2Digital to get their act together and get the merger finished so that we can start working on my print books. But they were supposed to have this done months ago, and there's still no word on it. They haven't made any progress. There's been no forward movement. I've seen nothing. They got the first couple parts done, and now they're just kind of dragging their feet. So, like I say, I don't know when it's going to be done. I'm waiting on them. Once they get it done, then I've got an open door to do the print publishing. And as soon as I do, I'm gonna work with my buddy Don, and we're gonna start pushing these books out for you. Get all the stuff I've got right now pushed out in print. Anything that's up on Amazon already, we'll get all of that refreshed. And then once those are all out, once I get everything that I've already got published out there, back out there in print, then I will release After Off-World, and I'm shooting for June. But again, it depends on when Draft2Digital gets it figured out. If they don't get it figured out, I'm gonna move over to like Barnes & Noble or one of those other pod publishers and let them do it. But again, I'm hoping Draft2Digital does it because that will make it so much easier. But anyways, I will leave it at that. And if you guys, as usual, have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, etc., please feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to hear them. Thanks.